The first half of the season is behind us, so how close are the Magic to achieving their goals? And who is our first half MVP today on Locked On Magic?
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is January 14th, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, it's our first half recap, the first half of the season in the books. Who is our first half MVP? You probably could tell by the thumbnail. The big question facing the Magic in the second half of the season, and where the Magic are in the standings. We're going to get to all that coming up here in just a moment. First, I want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. You can make Locked On Magic even bigger part of your day with the Locked On Magic Daily Newsletter. It's the one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic Newsletter. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. The Orlando Magic are officially the first team to hit the midway point of the season. The New York Knicks joined them with their loss to the Detroit Pistons today, but the Magic are at the midpoint of the season. They get 2 days off, Monday and Tuesday, before they head to Milwaukee on Wednesday. A chance for us to collect our breaths, to take a deep breath and say, where are we? Where is this team? What have we learned so far? And what direction are we going? I like to do this. I like to cut the season into quarters, like take a moment to look at our team and look at where we're at. And this is undoubtedly a strange season. And you don't need to look much further than Sunday's game against the Sixers to see how strange this season has been. Paolo Banchero, the team's superstar player, has played only 7 games. Franz Wagner, who was becoming an all-star in his own right, has missed the last month of the season. Jalen Suggs, an all-defensive team player who took on the mantle of the top guy, is out. They've been out for the last week, probably going to be out for another week. And yet, somehow, the Magic have survived. Not only survived, they have thrived. With 23 wins, they are 1 win ahead of last year's pace. They still have, at least according to Positive Residual, the second easiest schedule remaining in the league. A lot of that because they still play the Washington Wizards 4 times. I think they get the Charlotte Hornets 2 more times. They got the Portland Trailblazers twice. They got the Utah Jazz 1 more time. I know the Jazz beat the Magic just a week ago. The Magic still have a lot of bankable wins that they can pick up the rest of the season. And they're still in 4th place in the East. All of their goals that they set out at the beginning of the season are still very accomplishable. Not merely just accomplishable, within their grasp if they take care of their business over the last 41 games. How do we account for that? Who do we praise? How do we make sense of this season? It has truly been a strange trip, an exciting one, a fun one at times, but a strange trip. And so, as I usually do, I like to name an MVP for the quarter, an MVP for the first half of the season. And it's hard to do that this time around. Yes, Paolo Banchero has been amazing. The 50-point game right before his injury, coming back with 34 points. He's played only 7 games. Franz Wagner is amazing, has been amazing, but he's been out for the last month. His absence doesn't define the season, but if I were giving it to a player, I'd give it to Franz again. But that hasn't been the story of the first half of the season. So, who is the first half MVP? I can't give it to a player. I am about to say by committee so loud. And I'm about to tick off the person that I'm handing this to. The MVP of the first half of this season is Jamahl Mosley. And yes, he's not a player. Yes, he's not on the floor. Yes, he's going to tell me that, no, you got to give credit to the players. You got to give credit to the assistant coaching staff. You got to give credit to everybody but him. And so maybe I'm really giving this award to the whole team. But let's not make any mistake. As much as he wants to shy away from the accolades and shy away from the attention, Jamahl Mosley is the reason the Magic are where they're at. Jamahl Mosley is the reason this team has survived. Jamahl Mosley and the work he has done and what he has built are why the Magic are still fourth in the East, can still accomplish all their goals, and why they look like they are on a championship trajectory. Not just a playoff trajectory anymore, a championship trajectory. You can say a lot of things about Jamahl Mosley, but in the big picture of things, he has built a team that believes. And that has really become what this first half of the season has been about. This sense of belief, this sense of understanding of how good we are. How many times over the last 2-3 weeks have players said, the coaching staff, Jamahl Mose told us, we are enough. It's one thing to say it. It's another thing to believe it. And believe it over and over and over again. To believe it constantly, to keep stacking wins, to keep yourself afloat through all the adversity this team has had. That is 3 years of belief. That is a system that everyone has bought into, a team that everyone wants to be a part of. And that is an atmosphere that Jamahl Mosley has built. He has turned a team that maybe didn't have well-known defenders into a defensive juggernaut. The Magic are, as I'm recording this, second in the league in defensive rating at 106.7 points allowed per 100 possessions. Even with an offense that has been anemic without its two best offensive players for most of the season, they still have a positive net rating. They hound you. They know who they are. They beat you with intense and insane effort. The Magic just freaking work. And they don't let up, ever. They're unrelenting, as players have said throughout the course of the season. And look, I'm not going to pretend that Mose doesn't have issues that he has to resolve. The offense needs a little pick-me-up. It needs some sprucing in it. And obviously adding Paolo and Franz will make it look better. They were 15th in the league in offensive rating through the first 5 games. They were 15th in the league in offensive rating after the Magic got comfortable with Franz Wagner. There is a good offense in there. They don't have the personnel for it right now. But undoubtedly, Jamahl Mosley's gotten the most of this roster. How many players does it feel like aren't performing to standard? We've talked about the disappointing season for Wendell Carter, the disappointing season for Cole Anthony, the disappointing season for Jonathan Isaac, the struggles that Gary Harris has had to stay on the floor, the struggles from 3 that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has had. None of that has mattered. The Magic keep winning and keep playing and keep being who they are. Jamahl Mosley is a superstar on this team. He deserves a lot more noise for Coach of the Year than he's getting. I think he's up to 3rd in the odds now. Kenny Atkinson's still the runaway favorite. But ask any coach in the league, how impressive is what Jamahl Mosley's doing with all the injuries the Magic are faced? And they all say, this is what a good culture is. This is what a good team does. It doesn't matter who they have out. It doesn't matter who's not in the game. They find a way because they don't change who they are. The Magic have become what everyone thinks the Miami Heat are. And I know the Zombie Heat aren't dead quite yet, but the reason everyone fears the Heat is because it doesn't matter who's in or out of the lineup. They play with the same intensity, ferocity, physicality, and force. That's the Orlando Magic today. Whether we want to call it the Magic family, the by committee group, or whatever. Jamahl Mosley has built this over the last 3 years. And this year, with the Magic facing tons of adversity, his team has delivered. It has been impressive to watch. It has been stunning to see. And Mose deserves a lot of accolades and a lot of credit for what he has brought to this team. And that's why he is my first half MVP. So what's in store for the Magic in the second half of the season? The big question that faces them coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Wayfair. After the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space helps me get back into a routine. Whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give your space a new look to start the year, Wayfair has everything you need, all within a budget. I am looking at my couch right now. I've had my couch for must be 5 or 6 years now. It's starting to look a little worn. I'm probably in the market for a new couch, and Wayfair is definitely someplace that I'm going to look for their huge selection, make it easy to find pieces that fit my style and budget. And my favorite part, the free and hassle-free delivery, even for the larger items. Wayfair site was so easy to navigate. I found everything I needed in no time. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's Wayfair, Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. The second half of the season will be upon us on Wednesday. The Magic will open up at Milwaukee, at Boston. Great way to start the second half of the season. Two very, very difficult opponents. But I think that gets to what the Magic have left to prove this year. When we look at and we're going to look at the Eastern Conference standings here in a little bit. I want to make this point about the East standings and where the Magic are at right now. We're going to get to that at the end of the show. The Magic sit in fourth place in the East. It feels pretty comfortable that the Magic are in that 4-5-6 group. It's Orlando, Indiana, Milwaukee right now in 4-5-6. That feels pretty comfortably where this team is at the moment. That's not good nor bad. I'm not making any judgment values. We'll dive into the standings here in a minute. But what comes next is obviously, I think, what everybody is anticipating. And certainly over the next quarter of the season, but over the next half of the season, we're going to find out what comes next or where the Magic need to go next. At this point in the standings, Orlando's 3 games back of New York. That's not an impossible deficit to make up with 41 games remaining. But it does very much feel like Boston, Cleveland, New York are sort of in a class by themselves. And the Magic have to prove they belong with that group. So are they with the tier 2 teams or are they with the tier 1 teams? That's what the rest of the season is going to be about. And obviously the Magic will kind of toil and work on their own. But it does say something that against those top 3 teams, Orlando is 2-4. They've beaten Boston, crazy win in December. Hit Celtics maybe at the right time. Maybe they'll hit the Celtics again at the right time on Friday. They've beaten the Knicks, undermanned, big win after they lost 3 to the Knicks. They've lost to the Cavs once. So maybe the Magic haven't quite had the opportunity yet to prove themselves against these teams. They faced Milwaukee twice, lost 2 close games against them. One in Paolo's return, one in the NBA Cup with just Jalen Suggs and the Magic trying to scrap their way in. I think I said this Friday. I don't know. I've said this to a few people, and no offense to our friends at Locked On Bucks. We will be talking to them later. Frankly, I am very confident that a healthy Magic team will beat the Bucks in a 7-game series. I have seen Giannis is Giannis, Dame is Dame. I am confident that the Magic at full strength will be a lot for the Bucks to handle and will be more than competitive in a 7-game series. And honestly, I think should be favored to win a 7-game series. That's the other part of this equation. We don't yet know how good this Magic team can be. As well as they played, as much as they've done, we haven't seen them at full force for more than 5 games. We need Franz Wagner back. It's probably going to happen in early February around the trade deadline. But this is the same element. How do the Magic get from tier 2 to tier 1? How do they improve into an Eastern Conference contender? And this may not be something that gets resolved this year. This season is as much about figuring out what the Magic need to get to that level as anything else. Could the Magic make a trade deadline deal? Possibly. I don't think they will do anything drastic or big. Again, like our friend David Lockett, Locked On Jazz, shortly after the Magic played the Jazz, pitched a Cole Anthony, Gary Harrison, a pick for Colin Sexton deal. The math apparently works out on that. I am very much on record that I think Colin Sexton would be an excellent add for the team. I know a lot of Magic fans feel the same way. Are the Magic ready to dive and make that big investment? Especially at a time when they're probably still integrating Franz Wagner back into the fold. I will say this again. I think that the biggest acquisition the Magic will make at the trade deadline is bringing back Franz Wagner. That's a big addition. Do not get it wrong. That is a huge addition and something that could be consequential for this team. Orlando still has to prove they are in the big time. Friday's game against Boston Celtics. National TV game on ESPN. If my math is correct and my memory is correct, the Magic have not won a regular season national TV game since the last game of the season in 2019 against the Charlotte Hornets. The fact that that sounds plausible tells you a lot of what you need to know. The Magic still have to prove themselves on a big stage. Not that they didn't do it in the playoffs, but they have to be able to do it day to day. And this will be Paolo Banchero's second ever regular season national TV game coming up on Friday. The Magic have to earn their way to more national TV games, earn their way into the spotlight. And again, this is all of the same piece. All these disparate complaints, all these disparate things, they are of the same thing. The Magic have to prove they are a championship level team, or at worst, at best, have to prove that they are on a championship trajectory. Ultimately, the way the Magic improve, as much as you want to do trades and get some like quick, put some accelerant on this fire, ultimately the way the Magic improve is for Paolo Banchero to become a superstar, which he looks like he's on his way to doing, and Franz Wagner to become the all-star that he looked like before his injury. The fact that those two players have hit those marks certainly suggests the Magic could do something big and put themselves on a clearer championship track, cash in some assets, and head toward a championship next season. What the Magic need to see is that they are ready for that step. Bringing in our friend David Locke again from Locked On Jazz. When the Jazz were looking to trade Donovan Mitchell, he came to me and said, "I'm kind of surprised you're not making pitches for Donovan Mitchell." And I was like, and I said, and I had long debates with lots of Magic fans about this. I told him, I think Donovan Mitchell would obviously help this team. Like, he's a superstar player. He'd make them a playoff contender immediately. I don't think they are ready for the pressure and responsibility that comes with Donovan Mitchell. I think that they want to give Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner the opportunities to develop and grow their own culture, to develop and grow who they are. And if you bring in a Donovan Mitchell, you're very suddenly limiting what they can do. Ultimately, and I think we can all agree on this, Donovan Mitchell ended up exactly where he needed to be and exactly the best place for him and for the team that acquired him. The Magic, I think, ultimately made the right decision not doing that deal if it was ever something they were interested in. Passing on that deal and accelerating their timeline would have prevented them from developing the kind of culture they have now. The kind of culture that does feel sustainable, that does feel very player-led, and does feel like it will last through a crisis. We've gone through a crisis so far with all these injuries, and it feels like it's going to last. I don't think that develops if you're suddenly trying to win now in Paolo's rookie year. Paolo needed the space to make mistakes. And now he's making mistakes, but winning at a high level. That's what the Magic wanted. And so now the question is, okay, are the Magic where Cleveland was 3 years ago? Ready to push some chips in and make the big move that takes them over the top? They don't need to go out and find a Donovan Mitchell, by the way. When Cleveland made that trade, they weren't sure what they had in Darius Garland. They knew Evan Mobley was a nice young player, but I'm sure they thought he was more of a complementary piece. They needed the guy to galvanize that team and turn them from a playoff team to turn them from a play-in team to a playoff team. The Magic don't need that. They are a playoff team. What we're trying to find out is how do we make them a championship team? And ultimately that dude comes down to timing. When is the time to make that move? Is it at the deadline? Is it now? Or is it in the summer? And honestly, the way you figure that out, the way that gets developed is you play the games. You see where you're at. We still got 3-4 weeks before the trade deadline. There is still a lot of time. There's still a lot of games and a lot of information to gather before the Magic have to make any big decisions. But what they will show over the next 41 games is whether they are on the right path toward a championship or whether they are bumping up against a ceiling that they need some help breaking through. That's the big question for the Magic in the second half of the season. And it's something that we will be watching very, very carefully. So, where do the Magic stand today? Let's talk about the standings and talk about where the Magic actually are in the standings, because it's a little confusing right now. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. I really seek out events to go to. I obviously cover sports for a living, so I don't have to pay for a lot of tickets to go to sporting events, perk of the job. But I love going to concerts. I love going to shows, and I'm always checking to see what shows are coming to town and how I can get in. Game Time has made it even easier for me to find out what's coming to town and get tickets to my favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was looking up tickets to go to Jurassic Park in concert at the end of the month at the Dr. Phillips Center. Not the kind of event you would think would be on these ticket sites. Game Time had tickets. And frankly, the tickets there looked a lot better than the ones that I was seeing at other sites. I found amazing deals for even this kind of obscure event. With Game Time Picks, you take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is also brought to you by our friends at Hungry Root. When it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, I've had this ongoing problem. I just don't have the time. Between work, life, trying to eat healthier, I'm constantly feeling stressed out and worried about when I'm going to go to the grocery store and make sure I get the groceries I need. And then you go to the grocery store, you buy things you don't need and end up with no time to actually cook. And one of my resolutions this year is to stick to my health goals. That can be a struggle too. Everything changed when I discovered Hungry Root. Honestly, been a game changer. It's the easiest way to eat healthy without all the stress. With Hungry Root, it's like having a personal shopper and a nutritionist all in one. They take care of my grocery shopping, recommending meals and groceries based on my tastes and health goals, from anti-inflammatory to high protein and gluten-free options. And the best part, every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. I'm talking quick, healthy meals that actually taste great, all delivered straight to my door. It's been a huge time saver and has made healthy eating so much simpler. You're going to love Hungry Root as much as I do. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA. Do not miss out. So let's talk where the Magic stand today. The Orlando Magic are currently 23-18. That is fourth in the Eastern Conference. They currently hold a half-game lead over the Indiana Pacers at 22-18. They're a game ahead of the Milwaukee Bucks, who they will play Wednesday in Milwaukee at 20-17, as well as a game ahead of the seventh-place Miami Heat at 20-17 by one game. The Magic lead the Detroit Pistons, who won tonight against the New York Knicks. They're now at 21-19. They're in 8th place, just a game and a half out of 4th. Look, let's not pretend otherwise. We knew the Eastern Conference standings were going to be tight. We knew we'd be competing with Indiana. We thought maybe we'd be competing with Milwaukee. We knew we'd be competing perhaps with Miami for a spot in the East. It is still it's midway through the season, but it's still very, very early. Teams are still sort of sorting themselves out. Everyone's going through streaks and valleys right now. The Magic are currently 4-6 in their last 10. Indiana's 7-3. Miami's 6-4. Detroit's 8-2. Teams are going to make runs up and down the standings. Remember, the Magic last year were 22-19 at this point in the season. They fell to as close as 22-21, if I'm not mistaken. 22-21 or 22-20. They were 8th place in the East at this point in the season. They climbed to 5th in the Eastern Conference standings. So there's still a lot of time for moving and shaking. I think personally it is much better at this point to talk about where the Magic stand in comparison to their competition based on where the team that's played the fewest games is at. So Detroit's played 38 games now. Atlanta's played 37. Atlanta's 19-18 as well. Or sorry, I'm looking at the 37 game schedule. Atlanta's 19-19. They are 2.5 games back of Orlando. This is where the Magic stand through 37 games. Orlando's 21-16, game up on Milwaukee and Miami, who are 20-17. Indiana, Detroit, Atlanta were all 19-18 through 37 games. But here's what's happened. Here's what's happened since game 37. Milwaukee, Miami played the fewest games of the bunch. So in essence, they have 4 chances to pick up one game and tie where the Magic are at. Or they have the Magic are 2-2 since then. So in the last 4 games, they're 2-2. Holding the ship steady. That gets them to 23 wins. Milwaukee and Miami essentially have 4 games to pick up 3. So the Magic truly are in 4th place in the East. They are the 4th place team in the East. And they're 4th place probably by a game or 2 margin. So again, that's kind of how I'm visualizing this. I was like, okay, let's set everybody back to game 37 and see how teams have changed. Indiana is 3-0 in their last 3 games. So they have taken advantage. They were 2 games back. They're now 3-0. They're now 3-0. They got 1 game left. They can pick up 2 games on the Magic over these 4 kind of unrealized games. Detroit's 1-1. Now they're 2-1 since game 37. They've picked up some steam and picked up some games. But obviously we're focused sort of on Milwaukee and Indiana. Those are the 2 teams, and Indiana is right now on a winning binge. The question then becomes, do the Magic have another winning binge in them? And the answer to that question should be yes, because Paolo Banchero is going to get comfortable again. And I think the Magic will be able to kind of hold serve and keep the ship steady for a little while with Paolo in. Like, I've seen some people freaking out about the schedule. The Magic play Milwaukee, Boston, and then Denver. Denver's 23-15, playing pretty well. They're 7-3 in their last 10 as well. They are 11-8 on the road. So again, Denver struggled with Orlando in the past. Obviously, Orlando is missing some firepower. It's a very good Denver team. Russell Westbrook's playing very, very well right now. The Magic do have an easy spot in the schedule coming up here pretty soon. They get Portland. They get, they go out west. They'll play Utah. They'll play Sacramento, who's playing very well right now as well. There is no easy spot in the schedule, but assumedly, at some point, Orlando's going to get Franz Wagner back. Assumedly, the Magic will have both Paolo Banchero and Jalen Suggs back. And we saw what the Magic looked like with Franz and Jalen, and they were fine. They were able to win games. They were able to kind of hold themselves steady. The Magic are not going anywhere. They are going to remain competitive. They control their own destiny for the 4th seed. And look, beating Milwaukee on Wednesday would put a bigger vice on that. Beating Miami on the 27th, winning that season series, puts a bigger vice on winning the Southeast Division. Remember, the Magic were only the 5 seed last year because they won their division. That was the ultimate tiebreaker. In a 3-way tie, division champion is the first tiebreaker. It's not head-to-head. It's not conference record. It's division champion. So the Magic winning the Southeast Division is a big deal. Milwaukee cannot win their division. Now, if it's just a two-way tie between Orlando and Indiana, Orlando's got a 2-1 lead over Indiana. They'll play the Pacers in game 81, the penultimate game of the season. Orlando and Milwaukee, Milwaukee's got a 2-0 lead. So a one-on-one tie with either of those teams doesn't help Orlando. If Orlando, Indiana, Milwaukee are all tied, Orlando wins because they're division champions. And in fact, Orlando, more importantly, 19-11 in the division, in the conference as well. Indiana's 13-14, Milwaukee 17-15. So the Magic doing some work within the Eastern Conference, picking up wins there. The Magic essentially just have to keep doing what they're doing, I think, and they will be fine winning the 4 seed. They're going to have to go on a winning spurt at some point. They're going to have to win like 4 of 6 or 7 of 10. They're going to have a nice 7 of 10 streak. Right now, and this happens throughout the league, you go through ups and downs. Everybody goes through them. The Magic went through it at this time last year where they struggled a little bit in January around Martin Luther King Day. They were struggling. They were kind of finding themselves. They were dealing with a lot of injuries. Then they got healthy. They came back and they were fine. When this Magic team is healthy, and they will be healthy again, probably in early February, around the trade deadline again, around the All-Star break, when this team is healthy, they are one of the best teams in the league, bar none. And it's just about getting to that point. We all waited, said, hey, when the Magic lost Paolo Banchero, we were like, just stay around 500. When Paolo comes back, we'll be able to zoom past it then. According to Positive Residual, which is a site that does schedule analytics, the Magic have the 3rd easiest schedule remaining in the league. Now, the Pacers have the 2nd easiest schedule remaining in the league. But Orlando still has a lot of opportunity ahead to build momentum. And look, you're not going to win any seed in this conference easily. It's going to be a fight through all 82 games. Don't get so obsessed with the standings. I'm giving you a standings update to tell you the Magic are fine. They're right where they need to be. Don't get so standings obsessed. The Magic have to keep stacking wins. They haven't won consecutive games since Christmas, since the Miami-Boston wins. Got to start winning consecutive games. We can't just keep treading water. But right now, through all these injuries, I think being 500, treading water is perfectly all right. It's going to get the Magic where they need to go. So when they are healthy, they'll start stacking up wins and start zooming past some of these teams and hopefully putting some distance between them and Indiana and Milwaukee so they can accomplish this big goal of getting home court advantage. It's going to be something we're going to be watching all throughout the last half of the season. Orlando is in the driver's seat to accomplish this goal. And I think the Magic are very, very confident that when they're healthy, they will be able to achieve this and host game 1 at their place in April. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipR_OMD. Find me on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of them on podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. As if all that wasn't enough, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Magic Daily Newsletter, the one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. And start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about what's coming up on this big road trip for the Orlando Magic, plus plenty more on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.